Hey everybody, Kahlief here. Thank you again for checking out Something Epic. It's a super fun project that I'm working on. Really excited to get you into episode 2. But before we do that, please go check out and use our creator code SPAWNONME if you're thinking about buying anything within the Epic Games store. Right now is a fantastic time. Their mega sale is going on from now until April 7th. And you can even cop a game like Tiny Tina's Wonderland and, support the show. You can do that really easily by using our creator code. So thank you so much for doing so. Thank you so much for rocking with us. We'll see you at the end of the episode, and make sure you're checking out some more episodes of Something Epic and all of our work that we're doing with Epic Games. Thanks so much. See you soon. Hey everybody, I'm super excited. This is Kahlief here. I'm rocking with our friends from Ember Labs. I'm rocking with the man, the myth, the legend, Josh Greer. How are you doing, Josh? How's everything going?
I'm doing great. Very excited to be here. Should be a lot of fun.
Super excited. And head of animation and animation director, Hunter, how are you doing?
Hey, doing great.
Awesome. So I'm very excited to have you both here. Josh, as co-founder and COO of Ember, first of all, congratulations on launch of Kena. This is for both of you and for the rest of the studio. Super
Thanks.
excited to see how launch has gone. It's wild to know that game has been out since September.
It feels like 6 months.
It feels like that game came out like early in 2021, but it's really just been a couple of months. How has the reception to Kena Bridge of Spirits been? What's been the conversation in the studio since launch?
Yeah, I mean, really kind of surreal, to be honest, because we've all been so close to it for so long, and then, bam, everybody's playing it when we launched. But the response has been really positive, really uplifting for the team to kind of see the how people are engaging with the work that we've been putting so much, effort in over the last couple of years. So it was a really fun time at the studio. A little stressful, as you can imagine, as our first title coming out, but overall, overwhelmingly rewarding just to see everybody finally getting to experience it.
Yeah, I know, having heard the story of Ember Labs and understanding that this was not only, your first game, but having you moved over from not doing initially game dev work, but doing a kind of animation studio work to now building out your first game and having it launch on a new system. Being, exclusive for an exclusive amount of time in the Epic Games Store. How have things kind of progressed in terms of, you got that great energy from the audience and from the industry around the game. Have things changed at all, really, in terms of the scale of what you're all kind of thinking about now and digging into in the conversations behind the scenes? Have things really gotten that much different? I
would say not entirely different. I think, to be honest, like the fact that we actually have a game out there is still kind of sinking in a little bit. I think, our accomplishments that we're really proud of with the rest of the team, are still kind of gestating inside of our heads. But I think with that comes like a really strong desire to kind of take a lot of the learnings we had from Kena and just do things better the next time. So I think that's, I guess, a positive sign that we're still really motivated to just kind of get back in there and just, build out an even better experience next time around. But, overall, it was, a crazy journey, like you said, going from our previous lives to this one. But we just learned so much, and we feel like we still have a lot to give in terms of, the things that we can develop in future titles. So,
yeah, I love that. Hunter, one of the conversations from me kind of digging into the backstory of Ember has been, again, this wasn't the first thing that you all decided to do. You were all in a animation studio proper before deciding to make your first game. Mm-hmm. When that then became a part of your workflow and became a part of the conversation within the studio, How did that just change everything for you as a person who's directly working on animation, not only for the work that you were doing before, but now with Kana?
The transition into games?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, to be honest, like everyone in the studio are big gamers. Actually, I grew up playing games, but I might be the one who's more focused on film and storytelling. But just the challenge of telling a story in this new medium was pretty exciting to try. And I really felt quite at home, like explore. Actually, I think there's a lot of opportunities to explore fantasy in a way that we may not find in our commercial work. So a lot of the same things I was looking for in our animated projects were still here.
I always go back to the conversation around, like, from theory and concept to iteration to completion and to launch. I always find that pipeline and that kind of, getting from step A to step D being fascinating, because it is one of those things of, being this your first game and having it launch on a very new system. You're learning so many different things at the same time. Josh, what were some of the kind of earliest things that you and the rest of the team felt like you had to kind of like get right to make sure that you were kind of going to land in a good spot for Kana's release?
Yeah, I mean, I think leaning on our background in terms of telling emotional stories that are character driven was really a focus. And like Hunter said, like that new challenge of that very passive experience in the film world to the very interactive experience in the game side, it was a little bit of a challenge to tell that story. But what we kind of kept coming back to is, like, if we can get the player connecting with the characters, we kind of have a win. And we always kind of leaned into that, either whether it's to our detriment or not. From a development standpoint, we those kind of moments that kind of really bonded the player with the character and set the tone for the world were really important to hit. And that's where leaning into the tools with Unreal became extremely important, but also kind of finding our own groove about what we needed to enhance to bring the kind of story to life. So. Yeah, I mean, even looking a little further back in development when things started, just to kind of give a little history. But, I think the whole team, maybe Hunter can speak to this a little bit more, but felt pretty at home in the Unreal pipeline, just because it's very artist friendly. And I think maybe even a little bit more, the reward was there a little bit faster, because coming from a pre-rendered world, you have a lot of technical aspects that go into getting the frame on screen, whereas in real time, it's like instant, right? We can kind of we can see all the gratification right there in terms of the effort on the art side. So I think probably Hunter can talk to that a little bit more, but it jumping into Unreal really opened up our eyes a lot about what our potential was even early on in the prototype phase. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Hunter, I'd love to hear your thoughts off of what Josh shared. If you can add anything to that, I would love that.
Yeah, sure. I think I mean he said it very well. I think it kind of opened up these possibilities, not just being able to render in real time, which is just you can iterate so much faster and see what you're doing. It's actually a lot more inspiring to it really, like, seeing the finished product at all times just helps you be a lot closer. And it brings a lot of inspiration. But also working on a project like this. In real time, it's a lot easier. Sorry, I'm not speaking well. Also, working on a project like this at this scale, you find a lot of economies in your animation pipeline. Things that might have been difficult to do in individual Maya scenes suddenly became much easier in terms of repurposing and building upon things, where we can grab like art assets from another department and put a bunch of characters on screen. The little rot characters in our game, we really couldn't pull that off in Maya very easily, at least. And we were able to just put a bunch of characters on the screen in our cutscenes, manipulate animations, and just get a lot of scale out of our work. So that was really a game changer for us.
Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to add, that mantra that we had of just trying to like connect the player to the characters really oftentimes puts the animation team under a lot of stress. Like, oh, we need this right now. Like, this wasn't in the plan, but here you go. This is going to be awesome. And it's like, okay, Hunter, figure it out. But I think, going back to the tools, it's like, okay, how can we be creative about this? Like, I'm already using, these raw animations over here on this scene. I've got a little gameplay element here. I put them in, reorganize them. That's just what Unreal and the real-time pipeline opens up for you. And I think we took full advantage of it after we kind of got in there and accepted that process.
It opened up a lot of doors, but it also, unlocking the potential, required planning too. We were working on maybe 60-second pieces, or we had our short films in the past. But being very selective with where you spend your time on those raw animations, where you can get a lot of mileage out of them. Thinking about this long iterative process of production, how everything will change multiple times. So it took a little planning. We also just had to pick what was important to us. And it was a lot of really exciting new skills to learn, and even the animators were working in blueprints and enjoyed a lot, like getting to actually craft the experience beyond just a cutscene. And I think bridging the gaps and having a more like multidisciplinary perspective helped us all to like make everything sing together. Picking what was important, like character interaction, we would. We kind of picked that as a goal of our team. I would always be asking my animators, like, that animation's doing a lot. It's really charming. Can we find a way to get more interaction between the characters? And we would actually, we set that as a goal, and we even tried to make that easier technically in our rigs for animators to actually, usually that's kind of a challenge. You'll kind of avoid interaction, but we wanted to make it as easy as possible. So I think breaking things down into your goals helps you kind of accomplish what could be really daunting at the scale.
I mean, I think the team nailed a lot of those small, intricate details, right? Just you have the overall art style, which was gorgeous, and it really, popped on every screen that I played the game on. And you talk about that interaction layer of it where, the rot would go and help, kind of do a task or combat an enemy or, be in the space together and even, between cutscene and real-time gameplay, how all those things kind of mash together. It always felt like everything was one cohesive idea, and that each one of those ideas were coming together really, really well. When you're all learning the process of not only kind of building a studio out in this way, transitioning to becoming a game studio, learning Unreal in real time, and then pulling in all those other tools into the space, how do you kind of go about the process of learning all of this stuff? Because you're in the mix of not only learning it in real time, but kind of using those tools when you kind of land on it to then produce a thing that's going to be going in game. How long did it take for you all to feel like you were feeling competent within the engine to even start that process of digging into it in that way?
There's a huge learning curve. I would say there were so many learnings because there are so many really talented teams that have been producing games already. So we would be playing other games. There's a lot of resources online, and but what they're achieving at these huge game studios is so impressive that we really had to pick our battles still. But we could kind of learn from the best in that way.
I think it was really important for us. I would just say, like, the prototype phase, before we even this is like, I don't know if the prototype is the best word for it, but this is what we used to get the pitch off the ground. Was really important for us. And I think it's maybe a no-brainer having, as a studio who's like saying, hey, believe in us and we can do this, that you have to produce a playable demo. But it took a lot of energy from the team. And at that time, we were kind of like siphoning availability off of our commercial projects that were paying the bills. And we had to invest quite a bit in ourselves to build that prototype. But I think that was really important for the team that we had internally at the time to learn the tools and give ourselves time to do that. And the prototype was a great, maybe it was because of a naive perspective of what we thought this was going to be, but it was a great motivator and tool to say, okay, if we can figure this out here, we're pretty confident we can do it on a larger scale. And this is when we're pretty small, but after getting funding, we definitely went out and tried to find people who had a lot more experience than we did to join the team, and specifically on the engineering and also on the design side. Just people with better experience than us. Coming from purely the film side. So, I think learn technically as much as you can, but also lean on experience from others, both out there on the internet and then on the team that we try to build up around us as well.
Yeah, I've always loved hearing dev stories behind the scenes of like how the conversation, people going through the like how the sausage gets made kind of thing. For me, that's always really interesting because it is so wildly different depending upon the scale of your studio, how big your studio is, how many resources you have, in the pipeline for your project. When you were thinking about folks to potentially reach out to, you had talked a little bit about it, Hunter, about we playing some other folks' games and kind of digging into, that for inspiration or things to kind of lean onto. What were some of the games that you were kind of going through and playing to kind of pull in some of those things that felt like they wound up kind of inspiring or at least kind of giving some good heads up on Kana?
Yeah. I don't know, maybe Hunter has other ideas, but
all answers are good answers.
From the technical aspects, we would look at what the guys at Naughty Dog are doing, Santa Monica. We would play God of War and Last of Us and Uncharted. Just from a technical standpoint and from the gameplay, just seeing what's possible and how they tackle these problems. But there were plenty of smaller indie or puzzle games that we would draw a lot of charm from. I remember this game Hob that I've personally gained a lot of experience from. That I don't see a lot of people talking about Hob.
Hob was a great game. Hob was super good.
Just the way like the world would transform, and I thought the gameplay felt great. And Josh, you can probably offer a little more.
Yeah. Well, I think inspirationally, Mike and I are huge Zelda fans. We grew up playing those games. Yeah, some of the older ones like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. So definitely just from like a tone and aesthetic perspective, that had a big influence on us growing up. But I think what we look for in team members, to be honest, we got lucky on team members that we found because we had built some previous relationships with our engineers in past work, and they had gone off to do great work at other studios, and we said, hey, we're doing this cool thing. You want to come back and join us? And then on the design side, we were lucky to have known some designers who actually went to school at the same university that a lot of the guys here did, and they have a film background, and that was really valuable to us because I think we all kind of spoke the same language cinematically, and then we can kind of lean on them technically in their experience. One of our designers, Liz, used to be at Naughty Dog, and so we were just like soaking up as much as we could, and then Jess had a lot of experience at Obsidian, and then so that just kind of like, okay, how do we break this down? How do we know how we would do it on the film side? How do we translate what we're trying to do cinematically into the beats of the game, and how do we organize ourselves? So those kind of things are extremely valuable to lean on them for that. And like I said, we all kind of spoke the same language in our hearts as filmmakers of the type of cinematic experience we wanted to make. So that kind of allowed our creative communication to be really fluid. Just like, okay, yeah, of course this is what you would do visually, but then technically, how do we figure it out and how do we get it there? On the development side was really important to bring in people with experience. So
yeah. On a side note and side tangent, one of the things that I've been just like dying to hear folks who are like in the game making space, but especially all of you because you've come from a filmmaking space. Epic is doing so many fantastic things in terms of technology. I've been really, really excited to see more of what they're doing in the kind of virtual production space.
Yeah, that's crazy.
How is that even, influencing that, not Kana specifically, but, the way you're thinking about storytelling moving forward with Ember as well?
I guess in some ways we might have we got out too early from the production side to take advantage of that stuff. I think it's really inspiring and would have been tremendously beneficial for us when we were doing it. I think it just speaks to where the industry is going, of the real-time feedback being super critical on set and in production, to get your actors into the space, to envision where the whole scene is going. So I think the tool set is there, but I also think it speaks to like, what the training is going to need to be moving forward. You can't, like to Andre's point, you cannot be singular discipline. You need to have, you need to understand all the tool sets that are out there, or programs that are out there. So I think, that's maybe on our team in terms of our development cycle, we kind of missed out on, from an education standpoint, getting a lot of experience, in real hands-on in college. But that's not to say that it's super easy to jump into because the tools out there. But I just think you'll see that shift now on the university and on the education side, because you're going to need to know some kind of real-time pipeline when you go into production work, whether it's in film or on the game side. So it's all kind of worlds colliding, I guess.
Yeah. Hunter, any thoughts on that? Because I know you as part of the animation side of things, I'm sure you get to see a lot of that stuff and you're like, oh my God, what is this? Can I use this?
I'm pretty excited. From an animation standpoint, I think on Kena we had a very traditional approach to our animation from a technical standpoint. Of course, when we brought it into the engine, it was very fun to explore what was possible there. But we didn't get to fully leverage all of the really exciting, more procedural animation that we're seeing. And now I'm kind of taking the time. It's just really exciting to see what's possible in terms of that procedural layer that you can do on top of your animation.
Yeah.
And I'm even seeing more animation done inside of Unreal itself. And I'm looking forward to leveraging that.
Go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying we leaned on our animation background a lot. Even just in terms of like the feel of the character. Yeah. I think we might have even took it for granted, to be honest, in terms of like the skills we had trained up on really empowered us to make a character controller that felt great, but also then build combat that felt really responsive, and enemies interaction. I think we obviously had some learnings between going from like, okay, having a ton of keyframes to work with on the film side, down the game side is just got to be responsive to the player. You can't let your animation kind of fully play out. You got to kind of make some concessions there. So, but in the end, it really benefited us. I think just having that, and even just like I said, we took it for granted. Just being like, okay, Hunter and team, you guys, this doesn't feel great. Just throw it across the wall, and then it'll come back perfect. I think it's a huge advantage that we had, and we tried to lean into it. To be honest, I think quite a bit of cutscenes in the game, but then we knew that we could kind of leverage that to get a great feeling action game as well.
I mean, I think you balanced that out really, really well. In terms of pulling in the story beats through cutscene and some in-game storytelling as well. But I feel like the combat definitely shined in that game for sure. I mean, the cute factor was there. It had a great story. I loved that. But for a studio who was putting out their first kind of big game, I think you nailed a lot of those things that a lot of younger studios or first-time studios might not necessarily get right in the first time. So kudos to all of you on the team for nailing those parts, and having what I would say is a game that a lot of people when they finished it, they were like, hey, this might be like one of the best PS5 games out there right now in the space, which I always thought was absolutely spot on. I think it brought together so many different layers of what you expect a next gen title to kind of feel like, look like, in those ways. So I feel you nailed that stuff pretty well.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. One of the other things that I'd love to hear you all talk about, I think for a new dev in this space, a lot of the conversations that I have heard behind the scenes have always been around how do you get your game out? How do you get it published? How do you get it in a space where you'll have a good amount of eyes on it so that people can see it and experience what you've made? I'd love to hear you talk about the connection to the folks over at Epic in terms of the Epic Game Store. I always am trying to figure out and surface up to our listeners and to our viewers about how some of the process works in that pipeline. Is it a thing where you make the pitch to them? Is that a thing where they see it out in the world? And, the gaming industry is really small, so people talk about stuff all the time behind the scenes. They're like, hey, I saw this Kena project. You should go jump on it. Like, what was the conversation there from that, if you can share?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk a lot. I'll try to talk as much as I can about the Epic side, but also kind of wrap in,
Yeah,
because we're
please.
other partners as well. But when we started development, the store wasn't even a thing, and when we were pitching, it wasn't a thing either. But from the very beginning, the Epic guys were awesome champions of what we were trying to create because they saw the potential in terms of like, obviously we have a cool story, being able to switch our skill sets over to game development through their tool, which was definitely empowering in a lot of ways. But also because, we were making, it looked pretty good. It had a visual aesthetic that was unique, and it kind of helped the engine shine a little bit. So they were super helpful right from the beginning, just in terms of like trying to connect us to the right people and get us in the door, because we were super green in terms of like trying to get the game off the ground. But ultimately what we did is we built a paper pitch that's kind of said, we think we can do this because of X. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be honest about the scope. We're trying to keep it something reasonable, just out of necessity and the type of game that we wanted to make. And then we followed that up with a playable demo. So I think that was really key. But even with that, I think it's tough. I think it's tough. As a first time dev for people to say, yeah, I think these guys can do it, and credit to Epic and Sony to say, okay, yeah, these guys got it. They'll be able to get it there. And they supported us along the way, because it wasn't all roses after that. That was, in a lot of ways, the easy part. And then as you go into development, a lot of developers will know it's extremely hard just to make a game, period. And then you go ahead and fold in the pandemic in there, trying to launch on a new system and all that stuff. And actually simultaneously launching on two platforms is not trivial. I mean, Epic guys, extremely easy, make it super easy to publish your game from a PC perspective. But you still have to support two platforms. And I think that was, another learning from us, slamming into release. That it's work. As easy as they make it feel. But, ultimately, Epic did a lot to kind of get everything moving, because I think you might notice, but we initially were developing on PS4 only.
Right.
We didn't, being a third-party developer with Sony, we were kind of, I guess, last in line is not the right word, but we're not privy to all the things. We were like, I think there's as a consumer, we're like, yeah, there's a system probably dropping here. Maybe we can thread a needle, but
we might get a dev kit at some point. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
We couldn't bank on it, but we had it in the back of our mind. And then again, to Sony's credit, they're like, well, we need people to make cool stuff for the platform, and they came to us, and we had to do kind of like a second pitch of like, why are we good for PS5 and why are we doing this? And then Epic came through with the exclusivity deal, to kind of help with funding platform to kind of make that all make sense, to be honest. And I think it was a great partnership, because Epic's there to support us in a lot of ways, from engine side, new content. There's a lot of factors going into the new platform on the Sony side, but also on the engine side. Epic's, getting their engine up to snuff to release on PS5 as well. So I think we just ticked a lot of boxes, got a little lucky timing wise, and then put our heads down and kind of ran through a couple walls. They're just the challenges of game development that everybody has to go through. But like I said earlier, just the naive perspective of it probably helped us a little bit, and then kind of bit us, as we try to get it there at the end. But Epic was supportive all the way, and even after launch, just promoting the game and really helping us shine on the store. They've been great, a great partner on that. So
yeah, and I loved you talking about working through, the pandemic. We're still in the pandemic. That's was a huge part of shifting everyone's timelines in terms of their games and development for a lot of folks. I did hear that fantastic anecdotal story that came across on a Bloomberg article about you all kind of doing your videos and a guy in a hazmat suit right across your recording stuff. How much did the pandemic kind of change the way things worked for you all, making sure that Kino was going to be able to get out?
Yeah, maybe Hunter, you want to talk to that, because I think a lot of our background put us in a good position, even though it was tough. But maybe Hunter can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was tough, but fortunately, like even on our previous work, a lot of the artists and animators we had collaborated with, we had originally discovered online. So we had a little bit of infrastructure for that already. A lot of the, in fact, like probably a majority of the animation team was international, even on our commercial work before that, and on Terrible Fate and everything. But it definitely put a lot of strain on the development process here, and certain departments had more challenges than others, and it was just a lot of IT overhead. And considering like our small scale, that really hit us. Where like we're all wearing multiple hats, and it was like Josh trying to like write and coordinate recording sessions with voice talent, but then he's also fixing everyone's. He's like handling a lot of the IT problems that are popping up day to day. So I mean, a lot of independent like work that you can isolate. We luckily, thank goodness, had a good workflow and like a means of communication, and had kind of a good system down for that. But there were definitely bottlenecks that emerged in the core development team.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Hunter said, we were kind of semi-distributed anyway, just because of a lot of the team members that we had worked with for a long time and built up relationships. I think is really important because we had those built-in creative communication channels already. And that's one of the hardest things about working remote and not even having the opportunity even to come together for a short period of time due to the pandemic. You know, we would oftentimes, we had a designer who was remote in Colorado, Casey, and he would come into the studio, and it was so beneficial just to kind of sit down 3 or 4 days, bang some ideas out, and then we can work more efficiently and building that rapport with each other. You know, it was really important. And like Hunter said, we had that already built up naturally with our extended team. So that was great. Being small, you have kind of benefits and challenges. Benefits being, you know, it's only 15 people we got to distribute to having working from home versus 300, you know, the crazy overhead. But at the same time, yeah, like Hunter said, that challenge falls on everybody. If something doesn't work on your home computer, it's like, what engineer am I going to sacrifice today to like make this work? You know, it's just the natural challenges that everybody has. And I think there's ups and downs to it, but I'm just really grateful that we had a little bit of that creative process built in into our team that we had built up. But it was still a struggle because I think we would always come into, like we always, I think for better or worse, we were very close in the studio, and then all of a sudden you don't see anybody, and like things you took for granted of like, walking down the hall and being like, what's up? How's it going? Oh, let's talk about this. That's gone.
The mental health factor. Mental health factor, like it's already hard enough making a game, and not working on a short commercial that's only a few months, but working on a project for 4 years when things are tough, it's already hard enough. But now separate everyone when they're stuck by themselves. It's just, we just didn't need that.
Yeah, and I don't know that we handled it great, but I think you just you had to like put a lot more effort into reaching out to people and staying connected. As many tools as we had, with Slack and everything, and video conferencing, it's not the same. And I think you just had to put a little bit more effort, and that just takes away time from making the game. But it was important. I think we tried our best, and I think I think a lot of learnings again from I don't know that remote work and being so distributed is going away anytime soon.
Right.
At least you have to be prepared for it. And now having gone through it, you kind of can take some of that into the next project of just being like, okay, what kind of structure can we put in place to make sure we support everybody who in many ways might be very isolated at their house, and how can we just make it the best in that scenario? So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that is a thing that I've also heard across many devs that I know has been, that human connection that you wind up missing in the past couple of years really does kind of come through sometimes in the way that you're able to kind of get those things over the finish line and do that kind of work. But I think again, the work you all put out has been pretty fantastic. So excited for more of what's coming from all of you. Before I let you go, and again, thank you so much for the time. What's the thing you're most excited for kind of moving forward as Ember Lab, looking towards the next project, towards the next, thing that you're going to be working on that you'll be able to share with the world?
Well, go first, Hunter.
Well, just as you can imagine, the first time you do something, you make a lot of mistakes. And just like entering this new territory, we've just learned so much that we're actually all very much looking forward to going at it again and just taking everything we've learned and trying to level up. And we've already been just having a lot of discussion around like every little aspect of the project that we can approach. So just creatively and as a production, we're just looking forward to trying to tell a story even a bit better, and to continue grow and continue to grow and learn more about what all the new technologies have to offer in Unreal.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
It's very similar, but I think we're in a cool spot now because I think we're going back into pre-production, and it's kind of like getting in. We're a little late to the party, but getting in on the ground floor on Unreal 5. Early on in Unreal 5, and looking at it from a trajectory of like where is the tool going to go in the next couple of years, and just using all that knowledge that we had on this first game to kind of build in some, to leverage the engine a little bit better, I think, and kind of be on a little bit more of the cutting edge when we move forward on the next game is really exciting. And just going into pre-production with the perspective of one game under our belt and just kind of enjoying this time a little bit more and kind of relishing the creative freedom that we have right now, because everything is open. We haven't really decided where we're going to go next, but just trying to enjoy that a little bit more. Yeah.
It's nice to know that there is an appetite for this, because until we launched that first teaser, no one had seen anything about this game, and we were already putting so much work into it. But knowing that there is an appetite for like kind of our style of storytelling, just gives us a lot more, just a lot more to look forward to in terms of pushing that even more and connecting with fans and doing it again.
Well, I will say. Again, Kena was one of my favorite games this year. You all knocked it out of the park. You've raised the expectations now in a good way. I think in a good way. I don't want that to feel daunting, because I'm sure you all put more pressure on yourselves than I could ever. But it is one of those things that when I came away from playing it, I was like, wow, these folks really do have a knack for telling their story, pulling together something that feels super comprehensive and cohesive. And giving spaces this feeling of this huge kind of vast world, which I loved to kind of spend time in. So, Josh and Hunter, thank you so much again for spending some time with me today. And I hope we get a chance to do more of this in the future. I can't wait to see what's coming down the pipe next for you all. And I'm wishing you all the best of luck in everything that you do. You're fantastic.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Love hearing your feedback. Yeah. It's great talking to you.
Thanks. We'll be right back. We'll see you right after this. Massive shout out to our friends from Ember Labs for being on Something Epic. Getting a chance to listen to them talk about Kena Bridge of Spirits and how that game was made was fantastic. Love doing these shows. And again, all of this is sponsored by our friends from Epic Games, who are, again, making us and putting us into their Epic partner program. You can use our code SPAWNONME at checkout to get into more of, the games that you love and help us grow in the same ways that you possibly can. So that's fantastic. Again, check out their Epic mega sale that's happening from now until April 7th. And then next month, we're going to have the wonderful folks from Aerial Knights Never Yield talking about music in that game, which was fantastic and brilliant. So lots of love for them coming up soon next month. So we'll see you all soon. Much love to you all, and peace.